Hi everyone, today we had a relatively uneventful day, a little bit of a push here and then a kind of stall into the mid-session. We're already pretty extended, but let's take a look at all of the charts and see if we can find some direction for tomorrow. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. In news today, I saw several Fed governors coming out and saying that they should be cutting interest rates pretty aggressively, getting down into the 2s area if we do get cuts like that. To me, that starts to signal maybe the economy is not doing as well as people seem to think, but also in that area, you do start to get to the point where there's not a lot of competition in terms of assets. What do you really want to be buying? If you're only getting 2% yields on bonds, where are you going to start to put your money? Are you going to look for that longer term to try to get more yield? Or will all of the money kind of go into equities the same way we did before when the interest rates were super low? So start to think about it. Are we going to be going much lower over the next year or so? They say 1.25% over the next year in terms of what the dot plot is projecting, which is quite a bit of cuts. That would get us down to around that 3% range, but is 2% where we are going to end up going. Again, that has me a little bit concerned, but I think it's more likely to be bullish for markets just because there's not a lot of competition for versus equities in terms of where do we put our money in the short term. Looking at fear and greed index, we're at a 63, not super extended, but just about every metric in greed or extreme greed. Here you can see greed on momentum, extreme greed on strength. Breadth has been neutral. We've been looking at that on the weekend video that it was kind of in that middle range, not extreme, but not really that healthy either. Put call ratio was at an extremely low level. That's starting to bounce just a little bit. VIX also starting to elevate just slightly. We'll take a look at that later. Safe haven demand still in greed, and then junk bond demand still signaling a little bit of fear. Interesting there on junk bonds and that spread. Moving over to seasonality, this is kind of a bearish period for the month. If we are going to get one, it should be happening kind of this week into early next week. So just keep that in mind. I don't know necessarily that that's going to happen, but seasonally that is what makes sense. Moving over to the economic calendar, not a lot here for today, basically nothing. FOMC members speaking. For tomorrow, a little bit of soft data. PMI numbers continue to be relatively healthy above that 50 mark. Fed Powell supposedly speaking tomorrow at 12:35. That'll be interesting. A lot of jawboning saying we should get more cuts. It'll be interesting to see if he echoes that. And then for Wednesday, new home sales, not a whole lot. 5-year note auction. Want to see how that moves after the cut that we got from the FOMC. Moving over to Max Pain. Max Pain right now is down at 659 for the week, quite a bit lower than current price, about 1% lower, not a ton of options. Put call ratio relatively moderate at a 2, and then you can see it here, put wall at 650, so plenty of room to fall. Call wall at 663, so we're kind of already topped out for the week in my opinion. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps, trying to give this a little bit of structure here. You can see on the daily chart, we were in this channel here. Over the last couple of days, we broke out from that channel looking for this upper trend somewhere around this kind of 675 area makes sense for the S&Ps. Again, we did kind of stall out here. I don't really have any levels to work with because I've been offline for about a month. So we'll start to add levels back. But right now, looking at this channel, looking at that price target around that 675 area. Of course, super overbought across every metric, but that doesn't mean we can't go higher, at least in the short term. If you're in, you're probably still in. If you're looking to get in, I would probably be patient here. Moving over to the Tasty charts, highlighting that upper ATR band here on the weekly, that is at 665.16. We are above that already, 666.75. So this is a zone where we just don't tend to go too much higher. You can see here, you can get above it for a little bit, and then you tend to give a lot of that back pretty soon after getting above it here. You can see got to it, pulled back, got to it, pulled back over the next couple of months. Usually this is kind of a peak zone again, which is why I'm highlighting pretty extended, probably not looking to enter in this area in my opinion. And then looking at the daily chart, we're right there once again. Peak is 667.22. High for the day was 667.29. So did get to that upper band, did pull back just a little bit, grinding along that upper band. A lot of the gains are likely to be slower at this point in my opinion. Moving over to the NASDAQ, you have a little bit of a rising wedge formation going on here. Rallied back to the upper range of that rising wedge, and then we did pull back just a little bit after tagging that on the daily chart. Same kind of thesis here on the hourly, pushed up a little bit. Hourly doesn't look as clean on those same metrics, but Same kind of thesis here, looking for that upper band, kind of riding the lower band here. Gives you a target around 605 or about a 0.5% higher for tomorrow. Again, very extended, already at a 75.74 on the daily chart. Don't see numbers that extended very often on the RSI. Then looking at the Tasty charts, no surprises here. Upper ATR band right there at 650 cents. We're already at 602.24, so very extended. Not likely to be able to maintain these gains too much longer. I do suspect we'll get a pullback in one form or fashion, whether it's pullback in price or pullback in time. And then looking at that upper band here again on the daily chart, you can see this is usually a pretty good metric. We'll pull back, kind of chop in here, rally back to it. You can grind along it for a while. Eventually you get a pullback, and we are here once again, definitely extended upper ATR band. 598.93, so we're already about $4 above that upper band. Usually we get some kind of pullback. Again, whether it's in time or in price, something is going to happen, and I would suspect that pulls back pretty good ways, really. Down to that 21 EMA would be about $20 lower. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, the Russell was up about 0.5% after giving back some of the gains on that Friday session. Dow basically unchanged on the day, up 73 cents or so. Still in the same kind of channel we've been watching pretty much all of May into current. This is the weekly chart here, jumping down to the daily. Again, you can see basically unchanged, still grinding just above that 9 EMA, continues to be support. Came down, almost tagged it. Still looking for that upper trend as your kind of price target around 469. And then looking at the Russell, keep in mind this is still a double top at your all-time high at that level, 244.46 is the level. Can we get above it and hold? So far we have not been able to do so. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Now you have Apple being an absolute rocket ship, up over 4% on the day, and huge numbers over the last 2 trading days, over 7%. Big breakout from that 241 level on the Friday, pushed above that level and starting to push through this zone here all the way to your all-time high around 260. That's about another 2% or so to that level. I would suspect that we're going to get there. Huge volume over the last 2 days, tons of buying in Apple. Obviously it's extended, but this has all of the markers of this is likely to continue to run. Apple looking super good. Probably going to look for a position in here. Just with how powerful it looks, look at that volume, absolutely massive. 163 million shares traded, about 4 times its average volume, massive volume, big moves, continues to run. It's probably going to break out to all-time highs, and then who knows where we go from there. And then looking at Microsoft, this has been okay. Let's go ahead and extend this out a little bit. Gives you a decent level to trade off of. It's had a massive run, of course. It's been a massive, massive run over the last couple of months. Had a very shallow pullback relatively. I guess if you kind of mark it top to bottom, it's about 10% or so. If you marked it from the very top of the candle. In here, you could certainly trade off a level around 509. Not a terrible risk reward. Risking about 1%. If we did get back to that next level, it's about 4.5% higher. So kind of like that. Actually, you can see good volume on the Friday, which was a bullish candle. Would suspect that'll have some more in it, but Apple is definitely the stronger of the two. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla was up about 1.5%, almost 2% there. Still holding above the level 414.50. Can it get to that big psychological level of 500, just above the kind of peaks here around 48? At this point, you have to suspect that it can go. There's not a ton of risk reward. This could go either way. That'd be about 5% to support. Can we get to that next level? That would be about 10% to the upside. So not a terrible trade. I don't really love Tesla here. I would probably take Apple over the two if I had to pick. Let's go ahead and extend that out. That gives you kind of a target in here, pretty much right at the peaks around 43 or so. It seems to be fading. It's up a little after hours. Maybe it can get some go tomorrow. Again, still looks okay. And then looking at NVIDIA, nice candle here today, about 4%, right to those all-time highs. If you can get above that tomorrow, that'll be a nice breakout for NVIDIA. The volume here has been ramping, so that looks pretty good. Had a nice consolidation, pull back in time really since mid-July to current. Is it going to break out here tomorrow? Kind of looks okay. Let's go ahead and look for a level to work with. Let's put one here, kind of at these wicks. I like 183.97 seems to be a good level. If we can get above that level and hold, that'll probably be a breakout and continuation for NVIDIA. Moving over to Meta and Alphabet. Meta was down about 1.5%. Again, kind of in the same zone as we've been in really since the beginning of August. Consolidation top around this kind of 792 area. Pulled back into the middle of the range. Doesn't seem to be gaining any strength. The volume was bearish, a little bit of selling volume there. So nothing great. And then you got Alphabet, had a massive run here, slight hesitation, maybe some pullback in time. Obviously massively extended. RSI was at an 84. You don't see that pretty much ever. So I'd say this is still bullish, just needs a little bit of a cool off in the short term. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples falling off a cliff, down 1.79%, breaking structure here. With all of the talk of rate cuts, staples do not look like the place to be, so people need bigger yields to own these kinds of stocks, and we did have a massive fracture here. Let's go ahead and extend that out. Makes sense, this structure broke here. Realistically, that was up here or so. So that structure broke, big gap and fall, continues to fall. This will likely fall a little bit more. I would guess 77 will break, probably head to 75. And then even discretionary is hesitating here at a little bit of a topping pattern, momentum fading, RSI fading just a little bit, but still very much better structure on the discretionary side. Moving over to breadth, 20 and 50-day breadth, very little movement here today, basically unchanged. This is continuing to be kind of melt up breadth, right? So breadth unchanged, it's a little bit weak on the 20-day. Would like to see it stay above 50, but 50-day still above the 50 mark. Momentum a little bit bearish, RSI a little bit bearish, but prices continue to hover. I still believe that we'll probably see a bit of a pullback in markets, and breadth seems to be signaling that at least a little bit. Moving over to the dollar. Dollar did continue to fade here, which has been the longer term trend, very much a downtrend over the past several months, but I thought we would find a little bit of a base in here, which is still certainly a possibility. Still want to see 96.85 hold. Last time we tested it, we found a really nice bounce over the next couple of days. This is the weekly chart, by the way. So that big bounce over the last 3 days, holding that zone. Want to see it continue to hold that zone, and then we should see a little bit of a move up. If we actually do get those rate cuts, that is going to be a little bit bearish for the dollar, but structurally it seems to be hanging in here pretty well. You have a low double bottom in. Would have liked to see a stronger high off of this bounce, but seems like that's not what we're getting, at least for now. Moving over to J&K and TLT. J&K continues to do well. Risk on assets continue to do really well, and those bonds are moving higher. TLT not moving as high. It's actually down fairly well over the last 4 days, about 2.5%. I still think this is an opportunity over the medium to long term. Yields have been going higher even despite the talks of cuts, which is a little bit odd, but eventually this will come into an equilibrium, which means TLT should go higher along with J&K. They should be moving really in the same direction, but for now that's not the case. Moving over to the VIX, we did get a little bit of a spike up on the VIX. You can see a little bit of a higher low structure here, a little bit of a spike up here today. Not what you would expect out of the move that we got in equities today. Equities went higher pretty comfortably across the board, but the VIX did spike up just a little bit. So a little bit of fear entering markets at these peak levels. That is usually not a good indicator of where markets are headed over the next couple of days to potentially weeks. Moving over to my accounts, I did not do anything at all. I just sit on this dollar position for now. I wanted to get, honestly, a little bit long during the session, but I just couldn't find any good positions to kind of get long and stay long. We're at such extended levels. The trend is definitely bullish, but everything is so extended, I don't love it. I just think we're going to see a probably 5% pullback in some capacity, and then we'll probably get a resumption to the upside into some higher highs, but for now I'd like to see about a 5% pullback would give a nice entry point for a lot of investors. And then we can get that continuation to the upside as we look for those rate cuts. Let me know down in the comment section what you are doing with your money right now. Are you taking profits? Are you looking to get long? Are you finding names where there is still some potential value? Or are you just buying and holding? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.